Good evening and welcome to the Smyrna Town Council workshop to set our agenda for our April meeting. Before we move into our presentation or our items for discussion, I'm going to ask Mark Adkins to do our prayer and Tim Morrell to do our pledge. If you'll stand with us, please.
Let's bow. Father, we come to you today with grateful hearts, Lord. We just thank you for the town that we live in and Father, the blessings that come with the people that serve here. Father, we just ask that you continue to look over them and protect them. And the people and our employees and our firemen, our policemen, all the employees that do the road work, Father, we just ask for their safety each and every day as they go out and put some of them, their lives on the line for us. Continue to lead, guide, and direct us. Thank you for the blessings that you give us. It's these things we pray in your name. Amen.
Amen.
You would join me in facing the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight, Angela Stacy's here with us. We're so glad to have you, and she's going to be doing a presentation on the broadband legislation. I'm not sure if council has kind of been keeping up with that. I know it's something that Jeff Peach and I have had quite a bit of discussion about, so we're glad to have you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time. So I know just a brief presentation today, so I wanted to hit the high points of what's happening around the country. So I'll introduce myself. I'm with a company called CNX. I'm the Vice President of Marketing Communications. But more importantly, I sit on the FCC's Broadband Deployment Advisory Committee, and I consider myself your voice to that committee. I'm participating in 2 of the working groups as a result of that committee. The most important to you would be the Municipal Model Code Working Group. And we are working through model code that's very similar to the small cell legislation that's being proposed right now and moving swiftly to a vote in Tennessee. So I wanted to touch on what is a small cell exactly and why is this legislation so important to Tennesseans. You hear a lot in the news currently right now around 5G services, the Internet of Things, smart cities, autonomous vehicles, that wave of the future that's coming. And all of it depends on the deployment of small cells. And they will mainly be deployed in dense urban areas to support those kinds of smart city products and services. They will make their way out to smaller communities as they try to build that dense network and bring those services out. And primarily the bills that are being put forward right now are doing that in order to get into those urban communities as quickly as possible. What's unfortunate about it is it lacks some of the considerations that local municipalities should have to manage their public rights of way. In the case of a small cell, while it will absolutely bring those services to you, you have some real public health and safety concerns in the long term about upgrading from services that you currently have. 4G services will be upgraded to 5G services as a result of launching 5G across the industry. And when you have those types of upgrades, it's going to cause some unsightly things in terms of equipment. So I wanted to share these pictures because this is the real state of what happens when small cells are deployed. Just as early as this week, CTIA put out a video that said a small cell is no bigger than a pizza box, and in the time that it would take you to get a pizza delivered, the small cell could be deployed. Nothing could be further from the truth, although I appreciated their cartoon video about it. Here's what it can actually look like in a community when you see this deployed. The left-hand picture is very important because at the top is where you see what is a small cell, but that small cell requires ground-mounted equipment to support the coverage. So it's more than just adding a cell to a pole. And it's also important to note that you don't necessarily have to own your utility poles to be concerned about this legislation because they can put a small cell on traffic lights, street furniture even. They will look to deploy these type of technologies. And when they do, that mounted equipment box has to be within 50 feet of most of the small cells. So they come in comparison to each other. It's not just that small cell. You've got to house that equipment somewhere to support that network. And this is what it can look like when it ends up on your poles throughout your community if you don't have control of your own design review standards. Currently right now, This is sweeping the country. 14 states have passed small cell legislation, much like what is proposed here in Tennessee through House Bill 2279 and its sister companion in the Senate, 2504. There are 17 other states currently with pending legislation like Tennessee. And if there's one thing I want to encourage you today, particularly from my viewpoint as I sit on the FCC, it's important to be vocal about this legislation. The National League of Cities, the National Mayor of Conferences, NACO, the National Association of Counties, have all come out expressing grave concern to the FCC about the work of the BDAC. And the reason they're expressing that concern is the Municipal Model Code group that I'm working in is currently drafting model code that looks almost identical in places to the small cell legislation that industry is pushing. The other concern that's being voiced by all those groups is all of the committees are heavily laden in industry favor. So folks like myself who advocate for municipalities have a minority voice on these committees. So we're having to go more and more public each day to make sure that these concerns and the education and awareness are out there for communities like yours. Just this afternoon, I got a call from some of my colleagues in New York City that sit on our working group, and they have resigned. A press release was released about 45 minutes ago. And the reason they resigned was in protest to call attention to the fact that the FCC and these committees are not representing enough state and local government's interests, and that there needs to be more participation. I view the small cell legislation here in Tennessee as your opportunity to voice those same concerns in alliance with the U.S. Conference of Mayors and the National League of Cities, because this is a big deal. This is continually pushed by industry. It's primarily sponsored by AT&T across the country, and we will continue to see these types of bills introduced until they feel like they're either going to make more progress at the federal level or they'll continue to do battle at the state level. And most of the time, the reason they introduce this legislation is under the guise of, well, local cities don't know how to handle these applications. They're holding us up erroneously. They're costing us thousands of dollars. Nothing of that is really true. There are many, many players in municipal interests across the country that have best practices to offer each other. And that's where I'd like to see them focus, is on those best practices versus always saying that there are bad actors out there across cities in the country. So let me back up here. These are the key points for Tennessee. And I know you're familiar with the bill that's currently swimming its way through to the Senate floor. It was engrossed this past Tuesday. And there have been conversations behind the scenes with the TML, wireless infrastructure, as well as wireless carriers. However, it's really been approached as more of a negotiation. And I think the opinion afoot has been, well, something's going to pass, so let's just try to make it better. We would disagree with that position vehemently, and we have seen evidence across the country where states have been able to successfully fight this type of legislation. Even though it's come down to the wire, it's required a governor veto, they've been able to do it once that education and awareness was generated and pushed out through their local communities. Here in Tennessee, where we see concerns with the bill are in these areas. The small wireless facility that's defined allows for 28 cubic feet in volume as well as 6 cubic feet in volume. That is a very, very large space for a small cell to be contained in. Imagine that hanging on one of your utility poles. The second piece is in co-location fees and application fees and rights-of-way fees. As the bill currently stands, even with the 2 amendments that have been placed on it, it allows for no right-of-way usage fees, and the application fees have been limited now so that the first 5 wireless facility apps you receive, you'll only be able to charge $100 for each of these. What's important about that is another piece of this legislation allows for what we refer to as batch applications. So if you receive a small cell wireless facility application, it can have 20 small cells within it. So for each application, you're going to have to review 20 different sites that they're requesting. It'll be positioned by industry as streamlining, but that's not the case. You still have to take your time and due diligence at the city level to ensure it's meeting all of your requirements. The other piece that is taking place in the legislation, and there was an amendment put forward so far in this that made it a bit better, but still not completely correct, are shot clocks. And the reason that's important is when you couple the shot clock with that batch application, you have a real issue for local municipalities, because what will happen with the shot clock is you're given now 30 days to review that application that has 20 sites in it. If you do not reply in that 30-day time frame, whether that application is accepted as complete or incomplete, it can be deemed approved. If you don't reply in 60 days with a full approval or denial, it can be deemed approved. And so if you get yourself within that shot clock parameter, you can have deemed approved sites and you are unable to stop or deny that site from going up. And that's an issue. And then finally, the design restrictions. Currently, as the bill is written, and there have been no amendments put forward at this point that we've seen to indicate this will change, it severely restricts your ability to have design and aesthetic controls in your community. And what's interesting about this is if you couple that with shot clocks and batch applications, and now you can't tell them how you want your pole to look or how you want that replacement pole to be replaced, you can see them put up a wooden pole next to an existing utility pole if they would so choose to do it, and you cannot stop that activity through the permitting process, through the application process. And so that's why it's so critical to pay attention to the design control that's put in the bill. And finally, and there's a picture I'll show you, and it kind of depicts what I'm talking about. In design restrictions, it says that you can put an antenna on a pole, but it can't be 10 feet higher than your highest existing pole within 500 feet. And so what that means is this pole now has an antenna on it. Well, someone could go to the next pole and go, well, that pole's now 60 feet. So the next pole can be 70 and 80 and so on. It's like that old Wella Balsam commercial. And that's a problem because you could see that aesthetically throughout your community, not being something that's pleasing to you, as well as you've now got to have concerns about the support of the poles, the size of the antenna, the backhaul and the replacement of those. To the left, I did want to share with you as well, our friends in California fought off SB 649. It came to an 11th hour veto by Governor Brown. But they were successful because the cities formed a coalition together and really pressed their legislators about this type of legislation. Here you see a press conference that they held in San Jose, and that box is 28 cubic feet by 6 cubic feet in volume with a grown man standing inside of it. Far larger than a toaster or a pizza box that you'll hear about in the industry media. And so I share that because I want you to have kind of a perspective on what could be coming and what it really looks like when it finally is deployed in your community. And again, the antenna is just a great example of what they'll do, particularly when they're upgrading from 4G to 5G services, is when you'll see more of that antenna type work and more work on your poles as a result of upgrading those services. So I know we had just a few minutes ahead of your busy session this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions. I appreciate the opportunity to be here or provide you with any follow-up that I could.
I do have a question. I work in technology, so I'm always excited to see new things and new technology coming that's going to make our life better and enhance our community. However, in this particular bill, I noticed you didn't mention it, and I'm assuming it hasn't been considered. It's going to take them a year or two to implement something like this in greater Nashville area once they even had permission. We're on 5G, so 3G, 4G, 5G. Just a few years ago, it was just 3G.
Yeah.
So we're putting a lot of size restrictions and a lot of conversation on height, but by the time they get to the middle of this project, all of those devices are going to be smaller. They're going to have more range, they're going to be faster, and they may even be called 6 or 10G by then. So I didn't see anywhere when I was looking through the bill of how they're going to handle refresh and upgrade rates that are probably going to move much faster than we as a city or anyone could actually keep up with.
Yeah, it's a great question and a very good point. We've talked a lot about that at the FCC meetings because it's hard for a community to broadband master plan. It's like buying a TV. You buy it today and tomorrow another great one comes out. What are you supposed to do? I think in the case of 5G, there hasn't been a lot of discussion about, post 5G world, what happens, because 5G itself is so, expansive. The speed is incredible. So there's just been nothing but focus on 5G. But to your point, that 3G, 4G, they'll have to go through and upgrade all of those, particularly from a backhaul perspective, to support 5G services. And right now, as the bill stands, there are some definitions about replacement that are within the bill. And that's actually a great point because we have concerns about the replacement language because it doesn't firmly define what they're replacing. And our concern, both in this legislation and at the FCC, is it could allow a carrier to come in and do an upgrade to equipment without proper notice and no additional permitting to do so. And the ramifications from that, as you know, is if you come in and you put something else that's load-bearing, weight-bearing onto the pole without those notices going out, you could create a safety hazard. Just that's the first concern that comes to mind.
Understand. Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Stacy, what is the range of one of these small cells? I mean, how far apart would they need to be located?
They will be located about 500 feet apart. Yes, so you can have many of them lining your street, particularly in urban areas. And for the most part, the mounted equipment box needs to be within 50 feet of a set of those small cells to support them. And
You said
you'll
a set, so one box could handle multiple ones?
It can handle multiple, but you'll have to have multiple mounted boxes of equipment. And most of these small cells have a range of between 2 to 3 miles. So that's why they need them 500 feet apart to create that dense coverage.
And if you're 500 feet apart and you only can be 50 feet away with the ground, you're going to pretty much have to have a ground box for every pole mount.
That's right.
In the way the bill is written, these towers can grow by 10 feet from the last one that's within 500 feet. Sounds like
last highest one.
A domino effect.
Exactly.
Jeff, I know you and Nathan both have been doing a lot of research and listening to a lot of the webinars and that sort of thing. So anything else you want to add or concerns that you have for us specifically?
Well, the concerns, and I attended the seminar that
Yes.
our corporation had, but also, as we attended TML, I believe it was the state and local chair, I'm not for sure who was speaking on it then. It's, the aesthetics is what's going to be one of the main issues that the public will notice and see. Obviously, as a city, they're dealing with our right-of-ways, and it can restrict things that we can do in our own right-of-ways because they're going to have all of this equipment in those locations, so it will affect us. And it seems like it's passed in the House on first consideration, and now it's
It did.
full force in the Senate at this time. But I appreciate everything that they're doing, and speaking with all of the communities that may not even have their own council in-house to try to educate them. But that's kind of the only issue that could stop it is going to be constituents contacting legislators.
Well,
Well, isn't it somewhat troubling that, I don't know about you guys, but none of our legislators have touched base with me. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I was just thinking that,
Sorry,
I
Mayor.
think it'd be good for us to consider communication from the town on behalf of all of us to our legislators on where we stand with it, because we haven't had any conversations with our legislators at this point.
I think Ketron sponsored the Senate bill, didn't he?
Yes.
what are other communities doing at this point?
Well, it's a great question. So we've been holding the webinars, as Jeff indicated, for about 4 weeks now. We've had 5 of them, and we've had a little over 42 communities participate in the webinars. And one of the call to action I've been asking is there a city out there that's willing to lead a coalition? Because what we've seen that's been successful in California, Illinois, Georgia, has been when the cities across the state join forces, issue group letters from multiple mayors, go after their senators with communication. And we have templates, examples, even resolutions. I think I shared with you some of the resolutions out of Illinois that were being put into place to try to voice their concern and opposition. And I think that's what we're still looking for here in Tennessee, is who wants to take that leadership role and gather that coalition so that those voices can be submitted together. And you make a very good point. It has been very quiet. We issued a scathing press release, titled "Taxpayers of Tennessee Could Lose Billions of Dollars," and it quietly didn't get covered. Tennessean has not covered it, and AT&T has sent over 36 lobbyists here in Tennessee for just this purpose in this bill, and I think that's why you're seeing it remain so quiet. I've attended the House Ways and Means committees, and I've only seen questions asked at the final Ways and Means, and they were very, very high-level, total softballs. Nothing of concern about the revenue loss to communities or the aesthetic controls at this point. And so I just think there needs to be awareness.
I'll be honest, I wouldn't have known anything about it except at our legislative breakfast, Senator Ketron said this is coming. Municipalities probably are not going to be happy about it, but it's coming. And so as soon as I saw the webinar come across, I shot something to Jeff and said, look, we need to be up on this and what's going on. So I would agree it's been somewhat quiet.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And like I said, we've been trying to kind of rally the troops to let everybody know. And I have a fairly unique position with my insight from the FCC. And so that's why we started those webinars, was to
Right.
hopefully generate interest with cities like yourself.
Right.
You mentioned AT&T. Who else is pushing it?
AT&T is the upfront sponsor, and that's been the case across the country in all of the states that either have passed it or have it pending. I was talking to John earlier, and I said what's interesting about it is Verizon's done a very elegant job of staying behind the scenes, kind of like you go swing your big bad bat, and we'll just sit back here and clap for you quietly. But certainly when I've been in the committee meetings down at Cordell Hall, Verizon has a presence. We even had T-Mobile trying to jump on some of our webinars, had to kick them off.
So if you're advancing technology, what's the alternative to this, though? You know?
There's not an alternative technology. I mean, 5G is coming, and this is the way it's going to be supported, but I think there has to be a fair balance to the authority of a local municipality and how it gets deployed. You know, I think what's overlooked often is wireless service has been deployed successfully across the country, working with municipalities today. You know, as much as you like to hear there are these bad actors and the cities don't know what they're doing, I think all of our phones work right now. And I think we've done that successfully across the country in partnership. And so this, to me, is more of a push for speed of deployment because the industry knows how profitable this service will be to them, versus really a fair and balanced approach. And, you know, we're all consumers of the services as well. And sometimes I think they lose sight of that fact.
Yeah, I would personally like to have the first 5G phone in Smyrna. That'd be great, but we need to be able to control it, and basically it's coming with no controls.
Well, I just feel like as a whole, this is kind of a pattern that we're seeing where state government is trying to take away local government's ability to govern. I mean, we looked at it not only being able to legislate at a local level, design review within a district, but also even being able to design review where you could have a home, and because of some of the legislation I see, you have a really nice home and someone could put a garage next door and do 24-hour auto repair, and just this seems part of it, and we work so hard to build our community because we're building equity for all of our citizens going forward when we do something that works and is designed well.
I agree.
Is anybody across the country already done this and done it in a way that's fair?
Yeah, they're great. That's a great question. The city of Boston would be someone that I would hold up as a great example. And I can forward you a PowerPoint from them.
That'd be great.
They have, you know, obviously more historic concerns than probably any town we would know. And they managed to come up with a program in partnership with Verizon. And they're turning applications, I mean, 80–90% of their apps are fulfilled within 2 weeks. And they've got a positive partnership. New York City is another great example. They came up with a standard shroud size so that you have that shroud, what you do within it, we don't have a concern about. You don't have to keep re-permitting. You use that and we're back here and you don't need additional fees. Even Georgia, who currently is arguing House Bill 533, one of their Georgia Municipal Association's executive director, his name's Larry Hansen, and he's a colleague of mine on the BDAC. And they developed a model agreement and were able to reach agreement within a matter of weeks with Verizon there in Georgia to deploy over 115 sites. And so we're seeing success around the country, and that's actually been our call at the BDAC to the FCC, and we continue to make it. And I'm sure when I read the press release from New York City tonight that they will do the same. There are people getting it right, and we'd much rather see time focused on sharing the insights of the best practices than trying to manage it down into municipal level. I mean, I am a native Tennessean myself. I grew up in Hendersonville, and I can't imagine that people understand Hendersonville better than those that live and manage it. And the same would hold true here in Smyrna, and I think that's the disconnect we're seeing right now.
Well, and I never want to give the impression we're trying to stop progress. That's not it. We just want to do it in a way that's best for our citizens and our community. And it sounds like if others have already done that out there, why reinvent the wheel and doing it in a way that's not appropriate for both sides?
So I noticed that at least two of the examples you offered up that were successful or are doing it well were in partnership with Verizon, and you had stated earlier that AT&T is pretty much pushing this nationwide. So does that insinuate that that local municipalities could be more preemptive a little bit and negotiate maybe with a Verizon and keep AT&T out of the playing field? Is that how that works? Or is it one or the other? Or
No.
I assume they're riding each other's networks.
Yeah, they're competitors on the field, but right now this would probably be one of the few times they agree with one another in terms of the legislation. And I think, Verizon is equally supportive. They've just done a better job from a PR standpoint of not being the bad guy and being the upfront person in pushing the legislation. But they stand to equally benefit just as much as a T-Mobile, a Sprint, and AT&T.
At the risk of running down a technological rabbit hole, what makes 5G so much different than 4G that the towers couldn't handle it as they have traditionally in the past?
It's the speed. I mean,
Just
at the
the
end of the
speed.
day, it's the speed of the technology. And, I won't even pretend to be an engineer, because if my colleague Terry sees this, he'll be like, I can't even believe you went down that path. But, I mean, at the end of the day, the small cells are really to densify those urban areas, because that dense coverage is required to support things like autonomous vehicles, like smart city sensors built into your light poles, and give you all those facts and data real time. That's the intent behind them. You're still going to see towers being placed up for service, but you're going to see this type of technology more in those dense urban areas, or small downtown areas around cafes and coffee shops and things of that nature. In terms of the backhaul, there's probably a million equations that the telecom engineers could come in here with, the way they're going to partner small cells with the existing system. When I was with Verizon for 21 years. I remember an engineer used to describe it to me as, you've got a straw, and you can get a really big straw or a really small straw, but everything's got to go through that same straw. And so this helps them pick lanes, if you will. That's my layman's definition.
That was a great engineering philosophy you just gave us.
Thank you.
HD,
I
think
understood that
about
completely.
think about distance from an access point. You can see on your phone that you drop bars the further you get away from a tower. Well, to maintain the speeds that we have to be able to run autonomous vehicles and do the things that we're trying to do, we've got to, one, ensure that you always have connectivity. Those cars can't lose connectivity, right? What's going to happen if that happens? And then you've got to also have the speed to do it consistently. So you pretty much have to have 5 bars everywhere. You can't have 2 bars in one part of town and 5 bars in another, which is what you see today. So the more dense they are, it's kind of like having more access points, so that you never drop off 5 bars, basically.
They just can't add generators or something.
Yeah,
can
that's
they?
right. It's not power.
Any other questions for Angela? Angela, thank you so much for coming, and hoping you've informed us a little bit more. I think you have, and I think we as a council just have to make a decision as to what we want to do, if we want to do anything.
Well, I appreciate again the time very, very much. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Any discussion that we want to have on that at this point?
The only discussion I thought of, Jeff, was, and I was kind of asking with my preemptive conversation, could you potentially find out if we could act as a town a little preemptively and set some things that we want to require for small cell, even if a state bill comes, if we're already in the play and we've already got something on the books, does it take precedence?
The state bill is basically for the purpose of removing municipal oversight.
Even if it's already there?
Yes,
Okay.
it's to basically give license to our right-of-ways so that the municipalities cannot do anything that would, in their opinion, stifle or slow it down from coming. I think what you notice at TML in Tennessee right now, our biggest issue is within the legislature. Well, one of the biggest issues in the legislature is we've got a balance of rural versus urban. And the rural folks, they're seeing broadband, those representatives that are representing the rural areas, they're seeing broadband, and they're like, yes, our schools don't have it, we need it out here, those types of things. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think it carries a lot of weight of them bringing this in.
Unfortunately, I don't think they realize how long it's going to be before
Right.
it trickles down to the rural areas, because it'll start in Memphis, Nashville, Knoxville, and spider out from there. So, the rural areas aren't going to get it quickly.
But I can put together a resolution for council if you'd like to consider that at their very next council meeting.
The other question I had is, could we, as a town, potentially enter into some sort of discussion with a Verizon and plan to handle small cells in our town through another agreement outside of what they're doing state level? If we are already implementing small cell, by the time they get something passed, or we already have a plan and we're already working with a vendor like a Verizon or a T-Mobile, does that keep them from being able to come in and dictate to us what we're going to do?
Well, and Angela, you can comment if you have any, but the way that I understand the bill and the way that I read it would not have anything to do with it. And it's for general terms for anyone that wants to come in, any of those companies that want to come in. So it's not like right now we have a franchise agreement with Comcast. The way I understand it, it wouldn't be like a franchise agreement with one corporation.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's true, but AT&T is not going to come set a small cell right beside Verizon. There's not an efficient way to do that. I mean, it makes it's overkill. So that's what I'm thinking is if you already have your city covered with a plan or even with some small cell, then it kind of defeats the purpose. They're wasting their money to come set something right beside another one.
Can you check with other town attorneys, especially here within Rutherford County, to see if they have concerns about this, if they're interested in maybe doing something as a group? And let's see.
Sure.
And then I also get on the phone with some of the mayors that are on the mayor's caucus with me and at MPO and try to make some phone calls to see what other communities are doing as well. Okay, we will move on to our items for discussion. And Angela, if we have questions, I can assure you we will get in touch with you. Okay, thank you. So our first item for consideration is a resolution relative to the plan of services for property located on tax map 57, parcel 50.00. Kevin?
Yeah, this is the resolution for the plan of services for the annexation. It's the next item on your agenda. It's annexation of a piece of property on Baker Road. It's about 16.71 acres. The town would be providing all services here except for water. Other than that, it's a very standard document you've seen many times.
Questions about this? We've already been through first reading on this, so anything with this? Okay, then item 2 goes along with this. It's the consideration of an ordinance relative to the annexation of the property located on tax map 57, parcel 50.00, containing approximately 16.71 acres, requested by RHB LLC. The zoning would be R3. The recommendation also includes the annexation of approximately 1,500 linear feet of the existing right-of-way of Baker Road. The property is located east of Baker Road, south of Interstate 24, and it is a second reading. Kevin, anything to add for this?
Nothing to add, and nothing has changed from your first reading.
Okay. Item 3 is our housekeeping item, which is the consideration of a resolution and memorandum of ordinance 18-08 relative to the annexation in R3 zoning of property located on tax map 56, parcel 50.00. Any questions about that? It's just our standard item we have to do after annexation. Item 4 is consideration of an ordinance relative to the rezoning of property located on tax map 28, parcel 103.01, containing approximately 43.3 acres. It's requested by Sean Collins to go from R1 to R3. The property is located at the end of Williamsport Drive, and this is a second reading. And this is the one I think we've all had quite a few questions and concerns about.
Yeah, and I did talk with Mr. Collins, and we talked at your last meeting about having a neighborhood meeting. I did talk with him, got him the information from the lady who spoke and all that. He did email me earlier this week, and he has requested that this be deferred a month. He is working on a concept plan. He wants to kind of work on that, have that ready before he has the neighborhood meeting. Again, I did talk with him. He's more than willing and happy to do that meeting, but he wants to be sure he's prepared for it and able to answer all the questions that may come up. So he has requested that it be deferred a month. So I know you have passed it on first reading. So I don't have to defer to Jeff. I don't know if we have to hold the public hearing and all that or not. If we just defer it a month and hold the public hearing a month later, but so.
Well, we'll be advertising. We haven't advertised for the public hearing until it's time for the council meeting, which I don't think we've done that yet. Have you already advertised for it? Then I would basically have the public hearing. If we've advertised for it, I would recommend that we do it at that time, and then we can have another one. But definitely want to give people the opportunity to speak, and if they've already made plans to be here, I think that would be proper.
Okay. But we can let them know up front that it's going to be deferred.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
would just like
back to him that I really appreciate him
That's what I
taking
was
that
getting ready to
proactive stance.
Sure.
Obviously, he's hearing what the people around him are saying. He's being a good neighbor, so I appreciate him deferring it and having that neighborhood meeting before he comes to us.
And this is not the first time he's done that. When we had concerns about the other project that he had, and I can't remember off the
It was
top of
on
my
Rocky
head.
Fork Road.
Yes, on the Rocky Fork Road, he went back and changed that. So I appreciate him hearing concerns, and hopefully the neighbors will appreciate that as well. So we'll go ahead and have the public hearing for it, but we will defer that item. Okay. Item 5 is consideration of an ordinance relative to adding language to the Town of Smyrna Municipal Code Title 13, Property Maintenance Regulations, specifically adding a Chapter 5 pertaining to vehicles displayed for sale, rental, or distribution. This also is a second reading, but I think this is also one that we've really been needing, and one that I think will make a huge difference in our community. But I know we've also had some questions and some people that have called. So Jeff, is there anything you want to add to this?
Well, one thing that I went back and listened to, because obviously Nathan and Steve and all those have been working on this. But when I was kind of reviewing it once again and listening to your comments that you made at the last council meeting, if you look at 503 II, where it states all vehicles displayed for sale, rental, or distribution shall be parked in a dedicated parking spot clearly marked with a contrasting paint. And as you recall, we kind of discussed giving folks maybe the ability to have, for some period, maybe have a car going this way and then maybe from the same part. So you may not want to have the full length of the car. So what I've kind of wrote down is maybe to put in there basically that contrasting paint 3 feet in length for the front portion of the vehicle. And I just want to see how you might feel about that, because that would allow them so they could have 3 foot this way, 3 foot that way, so they're not having all these lines going, you know, the full length of the vehicle, which could make their lot look a little less attractive, I guess, as well. So, or would you be happy with that being added in?
I don't have an issue with that. I mean, I like them being able to have the flexibility to move their cars. I think Steve even talked about the movement of the cars draws your eye if they've been sitting one way and moving them to another. So, I mean, I don't have an issue with that as long as codes can still be able to enforce it.
Mr. Smith, what do you think about that?
That's a good question. I mean, it
Will you
depends, I
come,
suppose,
just so people in the next, that's okay.
Do you
Not as
understand what I'm
much for
talking
us
about?
as for TV.
Yeah, I think so. You're offering multiple parking arrangements and not necessarily striping every two or three of those different arrangements.
Well, they wouldn't have to go the full length, but 3 foot. And so that way, when you walk up to it, you can see at least from the front of the vehicle, it'd probably go back about to the back of the front tire. So you know that it's fit into that parking place without having to do the full 10 or 15 feet or whatever of the vehicle.
Right.
Yeah, I think Lori actually, last month, she drew it on a piece of paper. It was kind of like a 45, so you kind of had a mark like this. And if the car was straight, it would be sitting here, or if it was this way. And I think that's kind of what we're getting at, is to allow them to have multiple configurations without, basically, their parking lot be all paint.
Right. Well, that in and of itself, I don't think would be a problem. I think my only concern is if we're going to also try to address, what is it, a 16-foot access aisle between, I'm questioning how we would check that as well. I guess we could just measure from car to car.
Well, the 16-foot access is still in there, so that's not removed.
I know it's not removed, but I'm just wondering how, I'm just trying to think through how we're going to check.
You were thinking of measuring from the end of the line to the start of the next line across the aisle. And without the full-length lines, now how does he identify 16 feet? So you would have to, yeah, you're probably right. You just have to generally measure between the cars as they're 16 feet.
Right.
Is that something you all can sit down and talk about, and then if you can send it out to us prior to the meeting, I think that would be.
Right, and I'm just suggesting, if you don't want to add it, you don't have to.
No, I would like to give them an opportunity to park their cars different ways, while still achieving what it is that we're hoping to do, in that it's not
Uniformity.
cars backed up for where you can't even move one car.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
If y'all can talk about that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and I think that's something Codes has got to be involved in, so that, because they're obviously the ones that ultimately will enforce it. So we'll get together and do that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I also want something that's enforceable easily. I don't want you to have to get out and walk every parking lot, right? Right, you should be able to drive by and glance and see what you're needing to see.
Exactly.
But also want to make it easy for that small business owner,
That's
for
right.
them to know what we're trying to accomplish as well. So I think it goes both
Would
ways.
there be any value to looking at it from the standpoint of, after you have this much property, then you could have the option to put the alternate parking directions in there? Because, a lot of the smaller ones, I mean, it would probably make the parking lot look like a mess to have stripes going both ways on it.
It may, but also the smaller ones, I'm thinking of one of the little lots right across from Tomlin where he currently parks his cars long ways along Murfreesboro Road. And so when he only has 3 or 4 cars on the lot, they're front to back, aligned across the front of his building. But when he has more cars, he turns them vertically and he ends up with 8 or 10. So what is he supposed, what would he stripe, right? And because his lot size isn't going to change, but his inventory certainly would. And that was the only thing, I was specifically thinking of him when we were talking about different configurations, because I've noticed that he changes his lot quite a bit depending on the number of cars he has.
Let's let them think about it and bring it back to us. I think they can probably hash it out better than we can in the next 15 or 20 minutes. So if you'll send that to us prior to the meeting so we have a chance to review it before voting on it. Okay, we will move on to, unless there's anything else in regards to that, anybody? Then we'll move on to item 6, which is consideration of an ordinance relative to the amendment of Chapter 7, Temporary Sign Provisions, Section A, General Requirement of the Town of Smyrna Sign Ordinance regarding banners, first reading. In talking with one of our codes enforcers, one of the things that I kind of asked was, okay, what else is out there that we're really having issue with? And banners was one of them. So I know he and Nathan sat down and talked. So do you kind of want to go into that a little bit?
Yes, and from my understanding of talking with Dennis and Steve, they had kind of proposed something like this a few years ago, I believe. But this deals with banners in particular, and those things that are flapping in the wind. And obviously, not to be confused with flags. Otherwise, in the sign ordinance, it deals with government flags. So this will not regulate folks that are flying the American flag or any other flag for that matter. Will allow up to 32 square feet, but that's combined in commercial and industrial zones of these banners. And the idea of this is to have a permit so that Codes is able to basically track so that they know how long the banners have been up, so that they are temporary banners. So one of the things that we need to decide tonight is the fee for the permit on the banners. And I don't know if Steve had any recommendation or suggestion, or if y'all had discussed that, but I'll let you speak first to that, Steve, if you had any recommendation.
We've got a lot of places that are using banners, and they're not temporary signs. They're using them as their total signage all the time. And then the other thing is, I don't know what you call the feather-looking banners that fly. Some of them are so ripped up.
There's one way down there I can see through the window.
Well, there you go. So some of those are in such disrepair, and I mean, they're horrible looking, and they just continue to stay out there. So
Yeah, it's definitely a lose-lose because, number one, like you said, they're so-called temporary, they're put up permanently, and then the other negative is they're free. There is no permit fee involved too, so it's we're losing both directions. We're getting bad-looking signs and not being able to gain any money to regulate them either too. So it's I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
As far as a fee, I mean, an administrative fee to issue the permit, we do that a lot for other type of low-impact kind of fees, something along the line of, I don't know, $25, $30 seems reasonable, but we can come up with an exact fee schedule if you want to, refine that to a more exact or precise fee, we can do that.
Steve, what's the process now if for temporary signage?
Temporary signs are not permitted.
They're not permitting. So how is our codes department able to keep up, or are they?
No,
With when they were put out, because they're not permitted?
that's right. We have no, I mean, we have no way to
So I think this is
document
the
it.
problem that we hear a lot, you know, what about all those banners and signs and things out in front of that business?
Yep.
And they do become an eyesore after a while because
Yep.
they get tattered, they're not moved, they blow over, they're not taken down. And really, without having control of it through a fee process, it's hard to keep up with when, you know, who has them, when they went up, how long they've been up.
Right. There is not a real clear definition on how long this temporary sign is supposed to last. And that's what they're called. It's a temporary sign, but there's no sunset on the temporary,
On any of them.
on any of them.
Yeah.
Well, and the other nice thing is, if you look, so 90 days, they could do a 30-day, then have 2 extensions, so a total of 90 days. But the other nice thing is, they can't do any more than 90 days per calendar year. So you can't put it out, take it down, come back, do another one, wait 30 days. You know what I mean? And we all know there would be some that would do that. So
Well,
I think this is a very fair.
yeah, I agree. And I think the $25 or, yeah, that's a nominal fee. Some of these signs probably don't cost more than $100 or $200, so you wouldn't want to get too crazy, but, you know, it doesn't count, and they currently don't count in the sign square footage, which we also adhere to. So I noticed a couple of businesses that have come through BZA that we gave a variance on their sign ordinance, a few feet here or there, and then you go by there and there's 10 of these sticking out there too, and I'm like, well, that's not added in, you know, that's signs too. So I think it's definitely needed.
Is a temporary sign limited to exterior display only? Because you'll see some banners that are within a window on the inside where you can look in, and it appears to be a banner that's just on the inside. And
I don't know that we can really address flags that might hang inside of a business.
like on a window.
Or like immediately inside the window. Yeah, I mean, you may want to speak to that.
I know we addressed some issues with windows through ordinance, but
Yeah, the windows, basically it's 25% of the windows, all you
Okay.
can cover up with signage, whether that's a banner, whether that's your flashing open sign or whatever.
so we would handle that separately and independently of
And-
this.
And
Right.
that counts in their sign square footage, right?
Actually, the window signs don't,
Okay.
yeah. But it's the permanent signs on the wall, the pole sign does, all that counts towards it. And the reason we don't permit them, because prior to 2011, we used to permit some temporary signs and not other temporary signs. And there was a real problem with that because we were making a business get a permit, supposedly. They weren't always doing it, but that was in the ordinance. But a real estate agent with this real estate sign didn't have to have one, the auction sign didn't have to have one, those kind of things. So that was a problem from a First Amendment perspective, so that was to clean that up. Also, at that time, we didn't have a real good way of tracking. The new permitting system that Steve installed in the last year or so helps us a whole lot in tracking those permits. And it's very easy to know that banner has not been permitted, but that one has. So
Yeah, and
it's
to be
for the inspector
clear,
in the
this
field.
one specifically calls out cloth, paper, and fabric, so it's clearly a banner.
Right.
Not many real estate agents or candidates for town council are using cloth, paper, or fabric, so.
Right.
Some people will find a way around.
But I have seen plastic.
And I think 90 days is enough time for a new startup, small business to get established, to hopefully then have permanent type signage. And if we're only doing $30, we're talking less than $100 over the 90 days to be able to maintain that banner. So are we $30? Are we good with 30?
I believe that is what the permit charge was when we used to permit temporary signs, so.
Okay. Okay. Anything else on this? Jeff, anything else?
No, ma'am.
We will move on to item 6, which is consideration of an ordinance relative to the amendment of Chapter 7, temporary sign provisions, Section A, general requirement of the Town of Smyrna sign ordinance. Did we already do that?
That's what we-
Sorry. I didn't have it circled. Why'd y'all let me get so far into
Doing
it?
it again?
Okay, item 7, approval of the terms of an authorization for the mayor to execute a renewal contract with North Alabama Fire Equipment Company relative to the fire department turnout gear, bunker boots, turnout coats, turnout pants, suspenders, and fire hoods. Chief?
Mayor, council, as you just said, North Alabama has agreed to hold their prices for another year, and we're here this evening to ask council to give the mayor permission to sign the contract, please.
Any questions about any of this? Okay, we'll move on to item 8, which is approval of the terms of an authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with Cummins, Crosspoint relative to the fire department generator maintenance.
Exactly, and again, Cummins has agreed to hold their prices for another year, and we're asking council to give the mayor permission to sign the contract, please.
Questions about generator maintenance? It's always nice to hear when they hold their prices. We'll move on to item 9, which is consideration of an amendment to the sister city bylaws. Jeff?
Yes, Mayor and Council, I believe Tiffany had placed this together any time that they've changed their bylaws with the sister city or any of our other boards, they have to run them through town council to approve those changes that they've requested. As you'll notice in what you have before you, the main issue is that they've actually included host family as well as chaperone criterion selection. So my understanding is they thought that was important as well because the children and families are going to stay with these folks, so they should have background checks done on those that are adults in the home. Also, they cleaned up some language where it states resulting in charges or convictions of felony or charges, and removed charges. So it needs to be, anyone could be charged, but we're looking for convictions. And then the last was section 5, just as what I just stated. Any person over the age of 18 living in the home of a host family at the time is required to submit to a background check. This is just to secure the safety of the people that are visiting with us.
Is the committee responsible for making sure all that takes place?
Yes. And
Okay.
they're very involved.
Okay.
And the committee, do they pay for those background checks? Does the committee?
I don't know the answer to that question. I believe that they pay for it out of their application, I think, or something, but I'm not for sure. Mr. Gilman.
We have a sister city committee on Tuesday, so I'll bring it up, but I would expect that the city wouldn't incur this cost, so I just want to make sure they understand.
Is that something that needs to be placed in here?
I don't believe so. If it's something they usually do, they can do it, but they would have to re-meet again, advertise for their bylaws and things. But there's many things that they do. This is just really for their meetings to outlay how it should go, but I wouldn't think it'd be required.
Okay. Questions about this bylaw change? Okay, we will move on to item 10, which is approval of the terms of an authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with Uri Howe and Associates relative to the audit services for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2018. Rex?
Hello, Mayor and Council.
Hi.
Staff is recommending the independent CPA firm of Uri Howe and Associates to perform the audit for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2018. It'll be here before you know it. They have been approved by the Comptroller of the Treasury to audit municipalities in the state of Tennessee. The estimated fee is $33,300. That's an increase of $800 over what it was last year. Their fee is based on the time that they spend with us. Typically at the end of June, they come spend 2 weeks with us. When we close our books, they'll come back for another 2 weeks. And they also assist in writing the report for us. So that's who we're recommending.
Great. And I know we see and hear sometimes how the town should be audited on a yearly basis. Well, we are audited on a yearly basis, so I think a lot of people don't realize that.
Yes. I wish we weren't, but we are.
Questions for Rex
Well, no,
on
but
this?
not only that, just a comment. We received some good news, Mr. Gill, this week that you sent out to us about Moody's and their comment report about our rating. You want to share that real quick, because we're pretty pleased
Yes,
with that.
they issue an annual issuer report. That's to keep their investors, the people that have bought bonds or want to invest in the town's bonds. They give us a very positive financial report. They mentioned that we were low in debt, also in pension liabilities, strong financial shape, good cash balances. They were very complimentary.
We appreciate that, I know, and thanks, Mr. Gill, the entire staff, finance department. I know you guys are doing a very responsible job there for us, and thank you for that.
Thank you. We got a good
Absolutely.
group back there.
Agreed. Okay, we'll move on to item 11, which is consideration of the declaration of surplus items. Any questions about these items? Seems like we're doing this almost every month, aren't we?
We try to be a good neighbor and clean house and get rid of our salvage.
Questions for Rex on this? Then we'll move on to item 12, which is approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a contract with R.J. Young relative to the maintenance agreement for the new copier at Town Hall.
That's the heavy-duty copier that we have. Of course, technology being what it is today, we typically use smaller copiers, but this is the one that we put a lot of copies on it. I think we're over 120,000 copies on that model that we're wanting to replace.
Okay. Questions for Rex on this? Okay. Rex, I think you're done, aren't you?
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moss, I think item 13 is yours. It's the approval of the terms of and authorization for the mayor to execute a rental agreement with Betty Brin Children's Museum Incorporated relative to the Adventures of Mr. Potato Head exhibit in the Smyrna Outdoor Adventure Center.
Yes, ma'am. Glad you had to say that one. Staff is recommending this exhibit. It's from the Betty Brin Museum. We rented our first exhibit from them when we opened the center up. So we've rented from them before. It's approximately a 2,400 square feet area that we have to take and use that exhibit, and it'll be running from May through September. So it'll be our summer exhibit. And in the contract or agreement you saw, it's $30,000 for 3 months plus shipping and a $1,500 deposit.
I will tell you that Courtney showed us some slides of this in the park board meeting, and it's a really cool exhibit. I think adults as well as the kids will enjoy this one. A little nostalgic. Didn't you think it was, were you there? Mm-hmm. Didn't you think it was pretty cool?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was one the kids will really enjoy. Questions for Mike about Mr. Potato Head?
Did you decide whether you were going to get the Mr. Potato Head costume band for the mayor to wear?
I was kind of thinking that's a good Mr. Gill costume to wear.
Here we go. You know, he was over there very quiet. And
Whatever
It has
team
some
needs.
it has tights that go with it. I think you'd look really good.
I was looking at the picture in the packet, and I was just trying to figure out who it looked the most like. So.
Will we be suspending the sale of potato chips during this exhibit?
not French fries. No.
Okay, any questions for Mike about this exhibit? Okay.
Thank you.
I will while you're up here, while we're talking about Outdoor Adventure Center, or was that going to be in your report about this week and the number of kids we've had down and the,
Well, I'll hit on that
that'd be
right
great.
now.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had something going on all week down there, which is one of the goals, is when school's out, for us to offer something for people that can that need somewhere to go. So we didn't really have a camp, but we had all kind of offerings going on every day, and it's been nice to hear a lot of people there during the day
and a lot of times they don't happen until school's out. But that's changing, so we're excited about that. A lot of kids were climbing, playing adventure zones, and we really saw all ages this week, which was exciting, and saw a lot of people using the exhibits, but I saw a lot of people doing whatever we were offering. They had an engineering set up where you could build a bridge and things like that. So there was a lot of different activities going on. I think today they had a scavenger hunt going on next door, so it was good to see everybody participating. I think what's been our main marketing is really the birthday parties, because that brings people in. It may be 30 to 50 people in there it's never been, and then they tell someone and they come back. So.
And field trips? We've had field trips?
We did. Walter Hill came down. It was our very first one with a school. We've had them with the karate club, some other things, but they came in, and I think we had 4 classes, and they set up stations, and it went very well. I'm very proud of the staff to be able to do that. I know we're limited on space, but they made it work. They had some outside, inside, and you know, with the adventure zones where the kids can get active too, I think that's something we're able to offer that some people can't. You know, a lot of it's education, but you can teach gravity, you can teach a lot of things with those areas and get the kids active, which was one of our goals from the very beginning.
Great. Good job. I think that's exactly what we were wanting to see when Mr. Gill put the committee together and trying to come up with an idea for the site, and I think you all have done exactly what we were hoping to do.
Good. I will pass that along.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Item 14 is appointment of 1 member to the Smyrna Stormwater Advisory Committee to serve a 2-year term ending 2020. So if there's someone that is interested in serving on the Stormwater Committee, if you would get your applications in, you can go to townofsmyrna.org to do that. We would love to appoint you to the Stormwater Advisory Committee. Other, I know Mr. Strange has a couple items under other.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I apologize for not getting this on the regular agenda. This came to fruition after it had gone out. First one is approval of the terms in the contract with Southeastern Compost. We've been working with Southeastern Compost to take our sludge there to their facility and kind of transition away from the landfill, because we all know the landfill's going away here in the next few years. So we finally worked through the contract, got everything lined out. Legal has approved everything, gone through that. So that would be the first one to go ahead and get that contract approved for us to take the sludge to Southeastern Compost.
A reduction in price too, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Probably looking at savings somewhere around $75,000, maybe $100,000 a year, depending on how things go. But yes.
Great.
You know what they're going to do with it?
Turn it into compost. They. I apologize. I can't
He's thinking about Mr. Potato Head. He's obsessing about that.
Maybe they're going to grow potatoes.
He's going to fill in his garden and grow some potatoes.
Oh.
I'm not even going to go any further.
They have a process where basically they bake this and mix mulch and different things with it and turn it into basically Class A sludge is what they're doing with it.
Other questions?
No, I'll talk to you later.
Can we get him a sample?
We'll deliver that this afternoon.
It goes back to the problem with the landfill and what they'll be able to utilize out of what they're composting, because I know that everything that they're taking is not compostable. So there's going to have to be some sort of separation. There's going to have to be some sort of it that is still disposed of in some manner outside of what they compost. So.
Well, the way we look at it, as far as the town's concerned, once we dump it at their facility, they take ownership of it.
Yeah, it's probably theirs, yeah.
As long as we have somewhere to go and have somewhere to put it at this time, eventually, we will probably look at going to Class A ourselves, but that's a pretty big expense for the town.
Okay, questions for Mike on this one? If you can go ahead and get that emailed out to us, just so we can look at it even before.
Should have that first of next week.
Perfect, okay. Next item.
The other one, we have been going through the professional services agreements that we bid out for the I&I sewer rehab project. We negotiated and had a lot of discussions with the first engineering firm, and we weren't able to complete those agreements, so we moved on to the second firm. we are comfortable now with the second firm and what they'll be able to do and come in, which is cameraing, TV, smoke testing, cleaning of all those lines, and then at that point, that should probably be completed sometime early fall. At that point, we will be applying for a CDBG grant, which we have a fairly good chance of getting, I think. So we will know in February. Once that happens, we would move on to construction and probably have to do this in phases as far as completing this whole basin. It's a pretty big area. So, but we will have a contract with them, and of course I'll run it past legal and Mr. Gill to make sure everything's good there and get that to you next week as well.
Okay. Questions for Mike on this one? Okay, thanks, Mike. I have something under other. Jeff Craig, can you help me out on this? As many of you know, Mr. Gill is ready for retirement. I don't know that we're ready for him to retire, but we know that
he's go cruising.
That's it.
I've heard he's got roles to play.
Got what?
Roles to play.
And tights to wear.
And tights to wear.
That's right. So the application, we're all due in by Wednesday. And Jeff, we had 90 applications for the town manager position. And we kind of wanted to go through a tentative schedule so that we can discuss schedule and be ready to move on with the process. So March the 29th, Jeff submitted final applications and a summary of qualification spreadsheet. Is that what we all want? What do we all want from him at this point now that the process is over? He is, in the past, he has done a tiered
1, 2, 3.
yes, it's like one through 5 in regards to the qualifications met. If they met all of them, they were in tier 1. If they met the majority, they were in tier 2. So he kind of broke it down for us. And I guess my question to you is, one, do we want him to do that for us again this year? Or this time? I think so. I think it made it very beneficial. And then, do you all want hard copies? For me, I like to have hard copies, but I think I only want hard copies of the first top two tiers. And but if you can make sure that, I know that we've been getting the applications on a weekly basis. If we can get those last applications from.
You get about 30 that I'll send you.
Okay.
Shortly after the meeting tonight.
Okay, that we received since Friday?
Correct.
Okay, so if you'll send us those, just so we have all of them in electronic form, and then, once you get done with your, tiered sheet, if you'll send us the tiered sheet along with, hard copies of the top 2 tiers. And do you think you can get us those by, when do you think you can?
Tonight.
Done.
Yeah,
Listen,
I'll
see,
get it to you
he's
tonight.
on it. So we will have those tonight before we
Yes,
leave?
yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so then what I want us as a council hopefully to be able to do, or at least discuss, is do you all feel comfortable that by April 13th, you could review the applications and come up with your top 5 to 10 candidates and submit those names back to Jeff? That should give you almost 2 weeks to do that.
2 weeks, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, do you have any kind of feel for how many that top 1 and 2 tiers are?
So we had 90 candidates, about 30 meet the minimum qualifications, and I've got about 10 or 11 in tier 1 and probably another 10 or 15 in tier 2.
So we're talking about review potentially 20,
25.
25?
Yeah.
Okay.
So do y'all feel comfortable with that? Okay, and if we can get, if you can rank your top 10 candidates, 5 to 10, then Jeff will take those top 10, if y'all are comfortable with that, and select the top 5 to 7 out of all of our selections to bring in to do an actual face-to-face interview. Are you all
That's good.
comfortable with 5 to 7 to interview? Do you want more than that? Do you
No
want
more
less than that?
No more than that.
Okay.
Let's look at them and see what.
Right.
I agree.
See
We
what
have
we
too
get.
many and it gets
I mean, generally that sounds good, but it may end up being 10 or it may end up being just 5. Right?
Well, and what Jeff can do is, out of the top 10, he can send us how many got
consistent,
select
right? Yeah.
consistent ratings, and we can say if 1 or 2 of them only got 1, we may not want to see those individuals to meet the 7. Okay? So if we can have back to Jeff by the 13th, then by the 18th, Jeff can send back to us to let us know which are the top 5 to 7. And then the April 19th through 24th, Jeff can check our references for the finalists and submit the summary to council members and start scheduling the dates to conduct face-to-face interviews. And then hopefully we can interview that first week in May. Would that work for you all?
I'm going to be out of town that week.
You're out of town first week in May?
Yeah, let me get the dates.
It's becoming that time of year.
It is.
Yeah, this is vacation, so 30th through the 4th I'm out.
Okay.
So
Then.
I'll be back May 5th-ish.
Then why don't we look at that second week in May to try to interview? Because the other thing is, Jeff's going to need to get in touch with these individuals that we're wanting to interview. And we kind of talked about before, were you all okay, continuing to be okay with us Skyping to interview some that may choose not to
Absolutely.
fly in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would prefer anyone local to come in person.
Absolutely.
But if they're out of state or
Yeah,
out
I'd
of,
be fine with Skype.
Skype would be fine.
Well, I'll be honest, if they're local and they choose not to come in, I think that tells us
Exactly. Yeah.
something that we need to know about that individual. So, so Jeff, are you good with kind of changing up a little bit of what we talked about to move it to May?
Sure. Yeah, that won't be a problem. That gives candidates a good 3 weeks to clear their calendars, so that should be plenty of time.
Right. If we're not comfortable with the first interview, knowing who we want, we can do a second interview if we feel that we need to do that. Miss Diane, I would like for you, when we advertise the interview, to have it to where we can vote on it that night if we choose to. We may walk out with a clear-cut decision as soon as we interview, or we may need a second interview, or we may need time to think about it and then choose to have another meeting. Questions? I'm really excited with the number of applicants and the number of qualified applicants that we've gotten. It's gonna be hard to fill Mr. Gill's shoes, but I do think we've got a really good pool of applicants. Other questions?
Just one comment. We did have, so across the country is about 1,300 people that are ICMA credentialed managers, and we had 4 people that are ICMA credentialed managers apply for this position. So the city is a place people are looking to come and work for. So I think that's helpful for us to recruit good quality candidates.
And are all those top tier people as you see it?
Those 4?
Those
Yes.
ICMAs?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions for Jeff? If you will, while is there anything else under other before we move on to director's reports? Do you want to go ahead and give yours? That way you can go get our stuff?
Sure, that's fine. This is pretty much all I've done the last couple of days. We're busy hiring seasonal help for the Parks Department, so we're busy getting people in for the splash pad in the pool, getting them in there for pre-employment screens. We just finished up our training for our consideration and anti-bullying for all employees. We got a couple of makeup sessions to do, but that's been well received by employees. So that's pretty much kind of what's keeping us happening in HR.
I just want to tell you how excited I am about the emails that we're consistently getting about the health and wellness and classes that are being offered, and employees have a real opportunity.
Yes, and it's Annie's doing a great job, and she's staying busy, and we're getting a lot of participation. Just, I mean, most recently, we're kicking off our Step Challenge, which used to be our Fitbit Challenge, and we've got close to 85 people that have signed up for that. So that's a tremendous participation rate. So excited about that.
I noticed a picture I saw that she even put a chair in there for Harry, so everyone can get involved.
That was actually after a rigorous workout. I was in the.
You didn't look like you were sweating.
I thought it was after the Easter egg hunt and you chased the kids down for their candy.
I think he was being fitted for his Mr. Potato Head.
Would you please pass on
Yes.
how much we appreciate all that she's doing? So,
All right, thank you.
great. Steve, you're up.
Yeah, I'll take this opportunity to, I guess I've said this before, but I'd like to speak in a way out to the public. This is the time of year a lot of people start doing some home improvements and those kinds of things, and I would like to remind them that anybody that wants to do their own home improvement project, that's great, and they can come to our office and we can get to some help. Excuse me. My caution that I would like to mention to people is this, though. We have a lot of problems when we have a homeowner hiring someone to do a job for them, but that person they hire says, I would like for you, the homeowner, to go get the permit. And I would just like to caution people, if that's said to you, that probably means you're not hiring the right person for that job. So if you're going to hire a person to do that job for you, that room addition, that renovation, whatever it may be, that's good. They need to come to our office to get the permit. That contractor needs to come to the office to get the to get the permit, and not send the homeowner in their place. The reason for that is what we, as you may guess, we end up with sometimes with some less than scrupulous tradesmen. I won't call them contractors because they're not. And then we end up with problems with that. We hear from that homeowner later on with money problems after that.
Steve, can a contractor come in here without a contractor's license and pull a permit?
In only a few cases can they do that, and it's pretty rare. In Rutherford County, well, statewide, if you want to do a project that's over $25,000, you have to have a state of Tennessee general contractor's license. In Rutherford County, there's an additional layer of contracting law, whereas if a person is contracting between $5,000 up to $25,000, they would then have to have what's called a home improvement contractor license. So if you're pick another county, you may not have to have that contractor license if you're doing a $20,000 project, but in this county, you do.
But you can let them know that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, like I said, if you're going to do if you're the homeowner and you're going to use the hammer and the nails and do whatever that whole project, that's fine, no problem. Come to us, we'll help any way we can. But just if someone says, hire me, but you go get the permit, that's usually a warning sign.
Okay. Questions for Steve? Thanks, Steve. Kevin?
A couple of things. We do have planning commission next week, so a couple items will be coming to council. And one other kind of, I guess, the highlight of that for me, I guess, as far as the project, is the fact that the topiary is going to be adding on again, even though you just got approved. We're actually, before they even get started good on the expansion we've approved, they're doing another expansion. A couple other things we are working on. We have begun the comprehensive plan. A lot of the preliminary work is being done right now on that. And then the downtown master plan as well. And we actually have scheduled the first steering committee for that, actually in the same day as our second day of the retreat. Actually, that's when they're going to be doing that, as well as several stakeholder interviews. We've contacted several downtown business owners, property owners, nonprofits, those type of things that have interest in the downtown area, to get some input from them.
How's response been on that? I had a phone call asking, is this on the up and up? And you know what I mean? And do I need to do any reading or anything prior to the meeting, that sort of thing? So.
Well, yeah, certainly it is on the up and up, as long as it was from Klein Sweeney. It's on the up and up. I have talked to one of the people that was invited to be in the interview, and he was very excited about it. And so That's the only person I've heard from, so I can't say beyond that.
Okay. Questions for Kevin? Anything new? I was trying to think, anybody been asked about anything that's going in
what's
where?
going up next to Dunkin' Donuts?
Dunkin'
Dentist
Donuts.
office.
Oh, the Smile, that's the dentist
That
office.
Smiles by Design, so
Yeah.
the orthodontist. And there's going to be some rental space in there as well.
Yeah, the only other one I heard, and I forgot, but where Green Bank and Capital Bank was on San Ridley, what is there?
Taco Bell and
Taco
Dunkin'
Bell and
Donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts,
Okay,
actually.
good. Right
Two-
down from my
That's
office.
me, my office next door. I'll probably
They're
get in
excited.
Pretty quick.
Yeah.
I actually received 2 emails yesterday regarding Chipotle. They are opening on Monday at 10:45. So for all of you people wondering, when's it ready? It looks ready now. So folks have started asking.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Kevin. Rex, you ready?
February local sales tax collected, $956,199. That gives us a year-to-date under budget by $94,183. February state share tax collected $431,971. That's a year-to-date over budget by $31,914. As you know, Finance, we've been working on the budget, and we're looking forward to spending some time with you guys and going over the numbers.
Great. Questions for Rex? Thanks, Rex. Mike, you up?
All right, I want to congratulate Jerome Dempsey and his staff. They got all of the plans, specs, documents, the multiple documents, multiple copies delivered to SRF for the wastewater plant expansion. In conjunction with SRF doing their evaluation, TDEC also does their evaluation. Probably looking at a 30 to 45 day process. There will be comments on a project this big. It would be an anomaly not to have comments and some things we need to address in the plans, but looking probably to go out to bid for construction sometime May-ish, early June, with construction on the plant expansion starting this summer.
I appreciate that work too. I saw pictures he posted of the sheer amount of documents, and it was impressive.
They had to bring a cart out to haul it all in.
I was going to say they probably had to rent a truck to get
Yeah.
it down there.
So he's done a great job.
No wonder it takes 30 days to review it. You know?
Took 30 days to carry it in.
Yeah.
Questions for Mike? Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Chief, you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Great.
Quickly, I'd just like to thank everybody that came out Saturday for our egg hunt. It went real well, though it looked cloudy, but we had a great turnout, I thought. And again, I appreciate everyone that showed for it. And I'd like to ask everybody to mark their calendar for our annual Family Safety and Preparedness Expo, which will be Saturday, April the 14th at the Event Center from 9 to 2. And our CPRAED class field will be, we had 125 people register for that. So
Great.
we'll be doing that.
If there's some that don't show up that day, if there's somebody there that would like to participate,
We'd
will they
happy-
be able to fill the spot?
Be happy to fill
Okay.
it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I know sometimes people think they're going to be able to make it, and then they might not be able to. Questions for Chief? Y'all always do a great job on the egg hunt, and Mike, we appreciate what y'all's department does and coming out and setting up and all. So, lots of happy little kids leaving with full baskets.
That they were.
Yeah. Thanks, Chief. Robert?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We've been busy working with utilities and the upgrade and bringing online their new system. And I'd like to mention Patty and all the work that she's done and give a big thanks for her. Also, I'd like to mention we've got a new employee. We've brought David Fielder on board, and he brings with him a strong forensic and analysis background also. So we'd like to make mention of him. So it has increased our staff to let us better serve the various departments and ultimately the citizens too.
Great. Questions for Robert?
Robert, I know that at least 2 of us have had Dropbox issues this last few days. I'm getting a notice saying that subscription needs to be renewed, and I think Mark's has disappeared.
My app is gone.
So if you got time before you leave, I'll either give you the iPad or you can look at it. I don't care.
It's the new security measure to keep things tight.
It's working.
It's keeping us out, I can tell you that.
Maybe that was the purpose.
Could be.
Yeah, we'll see you after.
Great.
Shady character.
Thanks, Robert. Mike, I think you're our last one tonight.
Just a couple of things. We're excited to kind of kick off our Jefferson Springs Greenway Extension project. Our pre-construction meeting is Monday, so that's been quite the process to get that to construction, so we're excited about that and appreciate the support and budgeting to get that project started. And that will take a year, probably, so just so you know. I'll let the mayor speak on the Coos Memorial, but we are coinciding with that. I know we're doing an art call for celebrating freedom and the Blue Angels down at the SOAC. I know Courtney's been working with Mr. Langston, and I think she attended the Arts Commission meeting as well, so we might need some judges for that, if y'all don't mind helping out there. And also, obviously, we've got a lot of construction going on, but just some other events. We do have an Earth Day event scheduled for April the 14th. I believe it's the same day as Chiefs Expo down there, but we will allow people into the outdoor center for free during those hours and have some things on the lawn going on as well. And then also on May 5th, which is a Saturday as well, we'll have Kids Safety Day. We've been partnering with Stonecrest and Smyrna Fire Department and some others to put that on. That'll be held at the Outdoor Center and the Event Center as well. So last year we had a great turnout. We're expecting one this year, but it's a lot of people partnering there. And Fire Department and Stonecrest doing a great job. We're basically hosting it, and they're doing a lot of the legwork. So I hope people can make it to that. It's free as well, so I think that's the goal.
Great. Questions for Mike? Thanks, Mike.
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Diane?
Well, my staff has been busy learning the new utility system, and I think it's going very well. We've worked out a few kinks, but overall it's going good.
Great. Questions for Miss Diane? Mr. Gill?
You know, it's exciting to see all the good things that are taking place at the event center. You know, Mike mentioned SOAC, the new exhibits. Sunday we've got the Easter luncheon, sold out, 550 people. Had to turn people away, you know, and that's what, we've been doing this about 3 years now. Hopefully that's a tradition that we'll continue to do. Rex, commend he and his staff again for Moody's rating. We've got a ton of road projects going on, as you know. Matter of fact, whomever comes in here September the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd, I was just thinking, they better roll their sleeves up. We got Sam Ridley, Eden Springs, Nolan Drive, Cedar Stone Park, possible sewer project, all kicking off at about the same time. So there's a lot of good things going, and that's how I spend much of my day, kind of ensuring that those things get off the ground.
Great. Questions for Mr. Gill? Jeff?
It's a busy time tracking legislation. Be presenting that to you at the retreat. And also, Ms. Diane doesn't even know it yet either, but I picked up the delinquent tax information today, so we'll be filing tax suit for 2016's taxes.
Great. Questions for Jeff? Raquel?
Do you have an announcement about the Pancake Breakfast for the Arts Commission?
I do.
Okay. Well,
And there may be a slide too. I'm not sure. We'll
Okay.
see.
Well, then that's
Okay.
my only announcement.
Okay.
And just thank all of the departments for all that you've been doing. My son really enjoyed the egg hunt and had a lot of fun. Glad the rain held off for that. So.
Yep. Agreed. HG?
Nothing tonight, ma'am.
You're going to talk about Mutlow?
No, I was not. It was not on my list.
Okay. Exciting news educationally, you know, I'm trying to think, Raquel, you were there, Mark spoke, okay, and I was there. Lori was there. You know, Motlow's getting ready to break ground on a third building, 80,000 square feet. And quite honestly, probably by the time they get through with it, they'll need building 4 up and running. But it's been a huge pleasure to serve with the council here and Planning Commission with Mark as far as our role in it. And it's great for our community. I mean, you know, we get to keep our kids local, not only our kids, but we reconnect with our older folks. You know, one of the most important things that we do here is we build a workforce. And Motlow and with TCAT, I mean, you know, we're well on our way to doing that. So it was a very exciting time for the groundbreaking. Motlow folks are happy. You know, we're happy. It's just going to be huge for our community.
Great. Steve?
I'm actually surprised it got to me before anyone said Happy Easter. So obviously Easter's coming. I would encourage you to attend a church of your choice. Also, my time with Ready Player One has come to an end. I enjoyed the 80s and 90s references, but I'm not really a sci-fi guy, so whoever wants it next can have at it. I'll leave it here for y'all to fight over it. The last thing I'd like to mention is April 2nd, Monday, my son will be shipping out to the Marine Corps. He will be joining the ranks of his grandfather and his dad as a third-generation Marine, and so I'm proud of him to make that decision. He made that surprisingly on his own. A couple of weeks ago, he came in the house and said, I'm going and I'm leaving April 2nd. What do y'all think? Yeah, so we didn't get a lot of discussion. He just kind of made that decision on his own, and I'm proud of him for making that choice. Obviously, when it's your kid, it's a lot different than when I went, it was just me I had to worry about. When it's my son, it's totally different. So if y'all will, keep him in your prayer, and especially Mom. I'm kind of glad he's leaving for a while, but Mom's not so happy. So if you can keep them in your prayers, I'd appreciate it.
How old is he, Steve?
He is 18, but he will turn 19 on Parris Island. So while he's at boot camp, he will turn 19.
Well, we appreciate his service to our country and yours as well, and we will for sure keep you all in our thoughts and prayers. I can't imagine sending my child off. So.
Yeah, it's a weird feeling. It's the first time in either one of my kids' lives that there's absolutely nothing I can do about anything. I have zero control over any of it.
It's
so
a good feeling after a while.
It's the government, right? I will say that it was a pretty nice feeling. I'm going to get to remove him from my car insurance, my health insurance. I no longer have to pay a cell phone bill. There's lots of things going away on April 2nd. So
He stopped by and saw me today at work.
Okay.
And he was telling me about going, and it's really really good to see somebody that's as enthusiastic as he is about it, because I mean he's all in.
Yeah.
You know, he's all in.
yeah, that makes it a lot easier for me and Pam, because he wanted to leave last week. He's ready to go, and that makes it a lot easier if they're happy and excited about it. Even though he may not fully understand what he's getting into, the fact that he's excited and happy about the opportunity makes it easier on us to see him go. So.
But we as Americans have to appreciate those individuals who feel that way and are willing to go put their life in harm's way to protect each one of us and to give us the freedoms that we have. And there's no way I can say thank you enough to him and to you.
Yeah, there's a Trace Atkins song that talks about sleeping in your bed at night and your SUV doesn't have bullet holes because the kid next door just shipped out, and one of our kids is shipping out.
Right. Yeah. Mark?
Well, just to echo on that, Steve, thank you, and thank you to your son. You know, I'm a product of two veterans that one since is deceased and one is still here. So I often try to take the opportunity to thank our heroes for the jobs they've done in the past. They're currently serving. They don't understand sometimes that the family serves too. And so when they're, just what you just said about you guys, your family is, you have served, but you're serving again through your son. And so we appreciate that of all of our veterans and all those that are serving our country. Tim mentioned Motlow, and I want to thank the mayor. First of all, she had a conflict where she had to be in 3 places at one time, so asked me in her stead to go speak. And it was an honor to be able to share with Motlow and all the students that were there, the presidents and the chancellors and everybody that attended, really how rewarding it is for our town to be able to be in a partnership with them like we are. And part of what I shared that day, just to briefly say it again, Tim may recall, when this was just a thought, when it was in a planning commission thought, you will too, most of the, I know HG will, those that were on the council at the time, this has now become not just a thought, but not just a vision, but an actual occurrence now. And here they are going to another 80,000 square foot building because they're out of space.
I don't think when all of that was taking place, we ever thought it would be what we're
And
seeing
that's what
today.
I kind of alluded to the day I spoke. I said, you know, we talked about Motlow coming to Smyrna, and sure, we thought it would have an impact. But you see that vision now as a reality, and you wouldn't have thought then that the impact is as great as it is. So,
Mark, you go back to when they were just holding classes at one of the local schools, and then I think they moved into the National Guard Armory before they moved into their building, and and it was just like some people driving up here from Lynchburg to hold some classes is what it was, and now it's such an integral part of our community.
it's a big part. It has a huge impact, and we stop sometimes and think about jobs and the things that create impacts here. Well, look at TCAT, which is across from Nissan now. There's a $40 million facility training young people in vocational work. And so that kind of is where a lot of our kids are going now. They're studying more vocational and trade. So we've got a good blend of education right here in our hometown. It really offers a lot of our young people, and like Tim said, the reconnect for the 55-year-olds and older, us, if we want to go back to school kind of thing. So I'm not going, but if you guys want to go as a group, I'll go. We'll have fun. It'll be high school all over again.
Should have gone when we were 55.
Steve also mentioned Easter. I would like to wish everybody a happy Easter, and just keep in mind, Easter is more than hunting eggs. So please keep that in mind in your prayers as you think about what Easter really means and what it stands for. And last but not least, Lenny Kate, my little 2-year-old granddaughter, had her birthday this week. We partied down last week. I couldn't come to the Easter egg hunt, but I was having a big time myself, Chief. So I wanted to wish her a happy birthday.
Great. A couple items. Mr. Gill talked about the Easter buffet. Chef's going to be leaving us in June. For those of you that don't know that, we are really disappointed that he's going to be leaving, but we already have the job posted, and we know that that individual, whoever we hire, will come in and build on the foundation that Chef has created, because I think he's exceeded our expectations when he came in. Mr. Gill, I think that was one of your first hires, wasn't it? So he's done a great job.
You guys are sort of riding off into the omelet sunset together, aren't you?
Potato head.
Kind of potato head, yeah.
Offered to let him move in with me, but
The Rutherford County Hazardous Waste Collection event will be Saturday, April the 7th in Murfreesboro at the Solid Waste Department at 4765 Florence Road, Murfreesboro. It will be from 8 to noon across from Roselawn Cemetery. The Family Safety Expo at the Smyrna Event Center will be April 14th from 9 to 2. Come out and learn ways to help keep your family safe in the event of a disaster. Drawings will be held throughout the day for first aid kits, and over 30 vendors will be on site. The Earth Day celebration, April 14th, the SOAC will be from 11 to 3 p.m. They'll celebrate Earth Day with your family and friends at the SOAC. Come enjoy live farm and exotic animals, big and small, climbing, and interactive learning on how to keep our planet safe. There is free admission registration suggested through Community Pass, and you can contact Miranda Pewitt at townofsmyrna.org for more information. The Pancake Breakfast that Raquel was talking about will be Saturday, April the 21st, to be held at Chili's Restaurant in Smyrna from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. The cost is $5. Tickets need to be purchased in advance, and all proceeds will benefit the Smyrna Arts Commission, and you can contact Melissa Scott for more information, and I'm assuming tickets as well. Tickets also, okay. Okay. Just a reminder that the town offices will be closed tomorrow for Good Friday. And online utility payments, we have updated the online portal for making payments for your Smyrna Utilities statement. You have the option for quick pay, or you can register your online account where you can track the history of your monthly statements. Credit debit card transactions are charged a 2.6% fee, and other payment options include cash, check, via mail or in person, or automatic bank draft. Good, Mr. Strange? Thank you. A little bit about the room. I want to thank Ed and Pete and Elaine and David for all they've done. I think you can see they've done a wonderful job. Carpet is in. We are waiting on chairs for the audience as well as the council. Chief Bill is working on pictures that are going to go, that's going to go along the wall. Shades will be put in. I think that's everything, isn't it?
I think so.
And then we're also working on the lobby, and so if you come in, please excuse our growing pains out there. It will look a lot better once we're done. I think they're going to work on the sheetrock over the long holiday weekend and get ready to paint next week. So
I assume they got a permit, right?
They know who's in charge. Also, want to talk a little bit about the Coos Memorial. We're moving along on that. Please mark your calendars for June the 9th. We're not exactly sure on a time. We have a couple of things that we're working on in regards to that, but please make sure that you plan on attending. We are $90,000 from our goal. The community has been very, very generous, and we're getting down to detail stuff now, so it's really getting exciting.
On that, if you would just repeat for the public's consumption about where they can order those bricks online, because I had somebody call me today.
Yes.
That wanted to
You
get
can
one.
go to townofsmyrna.org, and there is a link there, or you can text 717 Jeff to 71777 to be able to also buy a memorial paper. I was asked by Chief Arnold today to be involved in the pinning ceremony for our new officers and the promotions ceremony for ones who have gotten promotions with the police department. And I made sure to convey our thanks from the council to each one of those individuals for putting their life in harm's way every day that they go out there, and how much we appreciate them, and how much we appreciate those individuals who are new employees with the police department, and how glad we are that they have joined our team. So thank you to those individuals. Last but not least, Mom's birthday was Tuesday. She had a big day and went out to dinner and had lots of calls and texts and Facebooks and all that. So happy belated birthday to my mom. Anything else?
I need quick shots. You reminded me, I butchered this up last time. My mother's birthday will be April the 8th, and she'll be 96 and going strong. And my son, who didn't join the Marines, but he did fly the coop, head to California 4 years ago, turns 27 next week.
Wow.
So there you go.
You're old.
That's why he's retiring.
Exactly.
There you go.
Anything else? Happy Easter. I hope you enjoy time with family and friends. And if nothing else, we are adjourned.
All right.